My name is Dean Berg. I'm with Path to a Green Home. I live in Beverly, but as Judith knows, I spend about half of my week at Starbucks in Marblehead, so I feel like Marblehead is my second home, and I'm pleased to be here, and thank you, Judith, for inviting me to speak. So let's dive in. As you can imagine, today we're going to talk about our homes as it relates to sustainability and climate change. So when we were starting to plan our remodel, we quickly realized that remodeling with green in mind, or doing a green remodel, is a challenge. I'm not a contractor, I'm not a general contractor, I'm not a contractor, I'm not an architect, but I grew up in a family of contractors. I've certainly swung the hammer many times in my life and helped to build many homes as I was growing up, so I'm pretty familiar with construction, pretty familiar with remodeling, done a number of major remodels myself and with brothers, but now that we were thinking about it with green in mind, it got like 10 times more complicated. That was just our experience. It just all of a sudden it got very complicated, and we ended up getting somewhat frustrated throughout the process, and we can really boil those frustrations into three major categories. So let me just talk about those. So one is, and some of you heard me talk about this as you were walking in, our home was built in 1888, so it's 130, if I'm doing my math right, 130 years old, 131 years old. Is that right? Now I'm questioning myself. Somebody check my math. Fact check. So it's an old house, right? And I call it the AntiGreen House. Kind of jokingly, I call it the AntiGreen House. So we have a number of things within our house, like many of you. How many have homes that are 100 years old or older? Okay, yeah, we live on the North Shore, right? And we're in Marblehead. We have things like if you look under that window, we have things like back plaster in the stud base. We have knob and tube wiring in a good chunk of our house. So in the walls, in the ceilings, between the joists, in the attic, we have a tile roof. So when we start to talk to people about insulating and we start to talk to people about solar, those initial conversations were very painful. Now it's a very quick conversation because we know exactly what we have to do and how to do it. Those initial conversations were, oh, you have tile on your roof? Maybe solar isn't quite as straightforward as we thought it would be, right? So we have this anti-green home. Frustration number two was the homeowners. So they were very stubborn. We had very stubborn homeowners. And we looked in the mirror and we had to realize at some point that, yes, we were part of this problem. We were part of this challenge ourselves. And I don't think, and maybe I'll ask you when I get done with this statement, I don't think that we're unique in this area. We all love certain characteristics of our homes, right? Whether it's an older home, a newer home, there are certain things that we love about our home. And we have things that we love about our 130-year-old home as well. So I'll just mention two of the many. So we have single pane, double hung, bubble glass, multi-light windows. Thank you. We love those windows, right? And they're a big part of the character of the home. And this has definitely been the biggest debate that my wife and I have had about our home in the 15 years that we've owned it. I mean, that we've gone back and forth. Do we replace them? Do we refurbish them? Do we replace? We probably went back and forth on that for 8 years. And, it shifted from week to week, month to month. We finally drew a line in the sand about 4 years ago, and we said, we're refurbishing them. We're going to make them as tight as we can make them. We're going to put a low-profile storm on the outside to add a little bit more from an insulating value standpoint, because they are a part of our home, and we could not imagine throwing them out. Probably not the most green and the most sustainable, but we're keeping them. We also love the heat that comes out of a hot water cast iron radiator. We love the heat. And we also have hot water baseboard heat. Doesn't compare. We also have heat pumps in part of our house. Forced air heat. Doesn't compare. We love the heat that comes out of the cast iron radiators. So we're not ripping them out, but what we have decided to do, we're compromising. What we've decided to do is continue to put heat pumps throughout our house and use that now as our primary source of heat, and use the hot water boiler oil bed boiler as the backup source of heat, as the supplemental heat, as the heat that we can turn on when it drops below 30 degrees outside, as the heat that we can turn on if it's really damp and really chilly. So we're going to use that as our backup heat and supplemental heat at this point. So I think it's okay. Well, it is okay, and I've listened to other presentations about rehabbing old homes and making them more sustainable. It's okay if there are certain things in your home that you really love, and it's maybe not as green as it could be. Focus on other areas. Make them as tight and as green as you can, but focus on other areas. That's, in my opinion, that's the way that it's going to be with an older home. Our third frustration is we were looking. This is 7 years ago now. We were looking for somebody to guide us through this process. We were looking for. It didn't matter to us whether it was an architect or general contractor or consultant or somebody like that. We wanted somebody to guide us through this process. We talked to a number of architects. We talked to a number of general contractors, and they pretty much all have specialties in different areas. Whether it's I'm talking about related to green and sustainability right now. So they have specialties in different areas, but none of them really looked at they didn't look at our home from a comprehensive view or overarching view. They didn't look at those 5 resources, the heating and cooling, electricity, the water, the food waste, and the product and product waste. So we were frustrated with that, right? We finally said, you know what, analysis paralysis here is going to kill us. We have to get started. We just have to dive in, and what we do wrong, we do wrong. What we do right, great. And we ended up doing the first part of our remodel. It took probably a year and a half to get through the remodel. We did, I think, a lot of things right, some of them by accident, which, sometimes that's the way it works. We certainly did some things wrong, and we had some lessons learned. But we got to the end of that process. We took a few months off just to breathe and forget about, selecting paint colors and all the things that come along with a remodel. And as we started to think about the next phase of our house, we realized that we needed to do something different. We needed to change the way that we were planning. So we came up with the idea of we need to create what we now call a home sustainability plan. So it has become our roadmap. It has become our guide. So as we go into the next phase of our remodel, we know what the different options are. We know what the cost benefit is on those different options. And it really helps us and really guides us into the next remodeling phase. So it includes 3 primary things. First and foremost, it takes an impartial view of all of the resources that come into and go out of our home. Those 5 things that I've been talking about. And it really looks at them in a side-by-side manner. It looks at them from a relative, comparable type of a view. So we can see, this is how much our oil is emitting and impacting climate. This is how much our water is impacting climate. This is how much our food waste, or this is how much our product waste is impacting climate. We can look at that in a side-by-side manner. Secondarily, I'm sure you're imagining this now, is personalized to our home. And it's not only personalized to our home, but it's also personalized to our lifestyle. So there are certain things that we do within our home, right? The comfort we keep, the food habits we have. As you live in your home, you have a lifestyle within your home. If we were to sell our home tomorrow, somebody else would move in, and they would potentially have a very different lifestyle than we do. So this plan is really personalized not only to our home, but how we live and our lifestyle within our home as well. The third thing is that the plan includes a financial foundation and a financial component. So as we look at different resources within our home, and this is, by the way, this is not our home, this is from a different sustainability plan. And it's just looking at one of their resources, which is oil. They also were heating with oil. And you can see, actually it's kind of small. So on the left-hand axis, you see metric tons of CO2 emissions. So you can see their current state. You can see what they could reduce that to with some lifestyle changes. You can see what they would reduce that to with some medium investment, and you can see what they could reduce that to with some major investments. So by looking at the hogs within your home, applying a cost to reduce those or to mitigate those, you start to get a cost-benefit kind of an analysis. Now, this is just in one resource. As you look at the home across all 5 of those resources, you can really see where it makes the most sense to apply your time or apply your money to get the biggest benefit. Does that make sense? Okay. So just to start to wrap up here. So we've gone through this process on the first part of our home. We developed a home sustainability plan as a part of that process so that as we roll into the next phase of remodeling, it's a little bit easier and less stressful. For those of you that are do-it-yourselfers out there, please visit pathtoagreenhome.com. We've got a lot of good information out there. This is certainly something you can do yourself. I want to share as much of the research and the knowledge that I've gained over the last 6 to 7 years as I've gone through this with others. If you're not a do-it-yourselfer, this has become our flagship product now at Path to a Green Home. And